Quick question for you. When was the last time you went a full day without thinking about money? Not stressing about it, not checking your accounts, not doing mental math in your head.
Most people can't remember the last time that happened.
And what's wild is, it's not because money is complicated. It's because it creates a constant stream of tiny decisions.
Spend or save? Should I check or should I avoid? Should I move this? Did I forget that bill?
Those decisions add up, and that mental load quietly drains your energy every single day.
Which is why so many people feel exhausted about money, even when they're doing okay.
In this episode, we're talking about a different approach. Not budgeting harder, not optimizing every dollar,
But designing systems that make money run in the background.
because the goal isn't to think about money more.
It's to think about it less.
We're breaking down how to automate and systematize your money so decisions disappear, stress goes down, and your attention goes back to where it belongs.
Your work, your relationships, your life.
If you're tired of money taking up way more space in your head than it deserves,
This episode is for you.
this is the Fi Guys. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Fi Guys podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of financial independence and personal finance. Whether you're just starting out on your journey or well on your way to financial freedom, we've got the insights and strategies you need to achieve your financial goals.
In each episode, we'll provide actionable tips and real-life success stories to inspire and guide you on your path to financial independence. So, grab your notepad and get ready to transform your financial future with the Fi Guys podcast. Let's get started. The Fi Guys is a podcast dedicated to providing general information and insights on a wide range of wealth-related topics. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not constitute personalized financial advice.
The content provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be considered a substitute for professional financial advice. Your financial situation and goals are unique, and the information provided here may not be applicable or suitable for your specific circumstances.
We, the host and the guests of the Fi Guys, are not acting as your financial advisor. We are not aware of your individual financial situations, risk tolerance, or investment objectives. Any decisions or actions you take based on the information provided on this podcast are your own and made at your own risk. I may be a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. And now that the lawyers are happy, let's get started. How many money decisions do you think you've already made today? Not big ones, small ones. Spending, saving, checking your balance, second guessing. Most people don't realize this, but money creates a constant stream of tiny decisions. And decision fatigue is one of the biggest sources of stress in modern life. One of the biggest lies we've all been sold is that being quote unquote good with money means you're thinking about it all the time. But in reality, the goal is the exact opposite. The best financial systems reduce the numbers of decisions you have to make, not increase them. Freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from designing a system that actually works. So Dominic, today we're going to be talking all about money systems and optimization, something that we are huge here at the Fi Guys on. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, we're huge nerds when it comes to this crap. Yeah, we at the Fi Guys, we love to talk about automation, systems, anything to make your life a little bit more efficient, a little bit more easy. Because let's be honest, right? We do enjoy talking about finance, but there's way better things to enjoy in life. Going surfing, going to jujitsu, baking. Highly recommend going and testing a new recipe out. So yes, there's a lot better things that we could be doing with our time. And this episode was built to save you time. So spend some time, then we'll save some time, right? So I'm excited to get into this one, Chris. This one's going to be an important one. So I'll let you take the cake again.
It is. And, we always say here at the Fi Guys, obviously Fi stands for financial independence, but sometimes when we go into our little reader that automatically takes our words and transcribes it, sometimes it puts it as a PHI instead of an FI. And because sometimes that Fi might stand for philosophy. So I want to get started in the philosophy of getting money out. Here at the Fi Guys and for my company, Mons on Wealth, we talk a lot about getting money out of the way so you can focus on what actually matters in life. Money should be a system that works in the background, not a daily source of stress as it is for most of our people. So we need to be able to create systems that replace our willpower, automate, Automation replaces our emotions, and consistency beats the perfection that we're all seeking. We don't rise to the level of our motivation, we fall to the level of our systems. There's an amazing book that I recommend anybody reading. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this is where that book is the thing that has set me on this course of automating everything at the beginning. Dom, we should talk a little bit about James Clear's book because I think it might help to set the course for where these areas are going to be talking about.
James Clear is like the Mariah Carey. He's like the Mariah Carey of books, right? Every December, every January comes along, his book sales just go way up. He gets a fat check, I'm sure, because everybody's like, how do I get the best habits? How do I lock in? Just like Mariah Carey thawing from the ice, James Clear comes out of the shadows and says, hey, I've got this book called Atomic Habits. Everybody loves it. Everybody needs it. And it's on sale in January. So you should buy it. But yes, it is James Clear, right? I'm not okay. I was like, I'm like 98% sure it's James Clear. So yeah, Atomic Habits is definitely one of those foundational reads that it's kind of like a FI recommended book, right? We give it the FI of approval. Definitely a very important one. One of the ones that really stuck with me in this book, one of the main things that I took away was, if you want a habit to stick, make it easier. If you want a habit to break, make it harder, right? One of the examples that I gave to Chris, I think maybe last year, was, I love eating. I love snacking. I love all this fun stuff, right? But what I did to combat that was, rather than buying pre-made garbage, I bought my house is just full of ingredients. There's nothing that is readily available besides apples and bananas. And to this day, I've been eating an apple and a banana every day for the last couple weeks. But for me, I made it harder to eat junk food. And I gave myself, the ingredients. I made it easier to make food and learn how to be cooking more efficiently and cooking more healthy food. So that was one of the things that I focused on last year, and it's carried over into this year. So the book Atomic Habits, I can give the FI seal of approval from at least Dom's half, and I'm sure Chris, you will give your review as well. And what's kind of the main things that you learned from that book, Chris?
Yeah, I think the big things is 1% better every day. Like that aggregation of marginal gains is the thing. There's a lot of things to take from that book. It's a really, really good book, especially in talking about where these systems come from and where your dumb brain, why it can't figure it out without creating these systems. But I think the biggest thing for me, and especially from what we've talked about a lot on the podcast, is too many people are waiting for perfection to get started. Where 1% every day, that's the thing that says you don't need to start perfect, because you're not going to. And if you wait till you start perfect, you're never gonna get started. So just get started a little bit messy and work on getting a little bit better every single day, because that aggregation, that compounding of getting better, it is a superpower where most people stay stagnant because they're not going to start until they're perfectly formed.
Yeah. And that's it's funny. I feel like you got to listen to every podcast in sequential order, because what we talked about last week was very similar, right? You can't wait for things to be perfect, right? Since it's the new year, motivation thrives in perfect conditions, right? At January 1st, January 2nd, right? Perfect conditions. But discipline is really what takes over. And this book has enormously helped myself and Chris. And it's honestly, I might just have to reread it. It might be one of those books sometimes you got to reread. I know I do that with a lot of David Goggins' books. But yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll add that to the reading list. I'll come back and do an episode on it. I don't know. We'll see. But
We
let's
can
get into
definitely
it,
do that.
Chris.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the 4 core areas to automate first when you're getting started in this automation. Because I think when I tell people, hey, you got to automate your systems, they're like, okay, I don't know what that means. So they do nothing, and they just say, okay. So if you want an easier financial life, there are a few key areas that matter way more than everything else. And the first area that I want to talk about is your income allocation. You need to be able to pay yourself automatically. The moment money hits your account is when decisions matter most. That Friday or that 15th or the 1st, whatever day that paycheck comes in, we want to be able to automatic transfers to our savings. Bills get paid first. Guilt-free spending accounts get money allocated to it. If you don't decide ahead of time, your emotions will decide for you in the moment. And like we've spoke about so many times on this podcast, in the moment, when your emotions are high, those are often the worst of impulses and the things that are going to pull you away. So, Dom, can you think of any ways that we can start to maybe automate our paychecks?
I mean, you could go right to your usually a lot of, companies will allow you to automate it to different bank accounts, right? I know where I work, you can do that, through, like, the app and whatnot, and it's makes it a lot simpler. So, it removes you from the equation altogether. It's like, "Oh, I got paid today. Should I put some in my emergency fund? Should I put some in my savings fund? I mean, there's this new camera I wanted to get." It's like, "No, no, no. It's already divvied up. It's already where it's supposed to be, right?" And I think definitely taking the human aspect out of it, probably a good start. That's probably a good place to look.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. So I bank with my bank. What I'm able to do is every time my money hits my checking account, I'm able to tell it, "Hey, I want you to put this much percentage. Anything over $500 that enters into my checking account, I want you to take 20% and move it over to the savings account." We have multiple savings accounts underneath that where they can flow to. And then another thing is for my investments, it says, "Hey, every 2 weeks," because you can't say when money comes in, take money out from my investment account. But every 2 weeks, I want you to pull this much money from the checking account or from the savings account and pull it into the investment accounts and automatically invest it. So I get to pay myself first for my savings, get to pay myself first in terms of my bills, get to pay myself first in terms of my spending accounts. Anything that's left over inside the checking account gets to know that, like, okay, this is for living and this is for bill pay. But there's other ways you can do it that I've heard of people doing that I want to just introduce is you can go and you can open up multiple accounts, open up multiple checking accounts, and then you can actually go into your work sponsored plan, just like Dom was saying, and say, "Hey, I want 20% of my paycheck to go to this account, 15% to go to this account, 50 to go to this account." When it comes to automation of your systems, you don't need perfection. You don't need to have even the most complicated system. For me, that system of having 6 different bank accounts scares the life out of me. It's too much. But I know that personal finance is personal. So you need to find out what's going to be best for you. And our goal here is to just give you different examples and then you get to decide what is best. What way do you think would work best for you, Dom, at your stage of life?
I'm the 6 bank account guy. I'm the guy you're talking about. Yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah, I am that guy. Um, I actually recently, started looking for a new app to kind of consolidate all of my, um, finances in one spot, and I'm considering switching banks, but I'm not sure yet. I'm still on the fence. I feel like it's a new year. I kind of have to revisit these things, and it's important to revisit these things. But no, I'm definitely that guy. The multiple bank accounts, you know. To me, it makes sense, right? But I'm an intro, right? I'm young in my journey, right? I'm not at your level, right? So I'm sure over time I will develop and change it a little bit, and probably do something where it makes more sense. Um, but that's kind of how I'm just doing it right now. That's just kind of how I'm doing it.
No, that makes sense. It doesn't matter. Again, Dom, there's no right way and there's no wrong way. And to our guests, if you're like, "Oh, I'm a 6 kind of person," the only reason it doesn't work for me is because I don't want to have to carry on 6 debit cards. Like, I don't even want to think about 6 debit cards. I already have
Yeah.
like 16 credit cards. If I had to think about these different debit cards, that would just scare the life out of me. I don't like having to log into multiple things to be able to see my financial life. It just makes it more complicated. But when you're setting up your transfers or your savings, Dom, how much do you think these people should be saving into their how much money do you think they should be flowing into their savings accounts?
Well, it's different for everybody, but I know there's definitely like a rule of thumb. I know last podcast we talked a little bit about the 50-25-25 rule, which I thought was it's simple. And if it's simple, I like it. I like keeping things simple. And maybe you can kind of explain it a little bit better or correct me where I'm where I'm wrong, but 50% goes to like needs, right? Household needs. 25% goes to savings and the other 25% goes to investments, correct?
No, no, no. So 50% goes to needs, 25 goes to savings and investments, and then 25 goes to wants.
Gotcha. So I just took wants. I didn't know you get nothing. You get nothing what you want. You save, you invest, you get what you need. Exactly. Okay. So I didn't have any needs in my example, or any wants in my example. It's kind of how I live my life now. So, well, that's fun. That's kind of a scary representation of my life. But yes, that is a great way. I like that way a little bit better. I like the simple math. You know me. Things are simple, they're easy, and they are repeatable.
And I think we have to be able to clarify because I think some people are going to, maybe if they track their money, they'll be like, man, 60, 70% of my money is going to just my needs. And if that's the case, they're like, I can't do the math. So why even try?
Yeah.
And if you're going to come to that with that attitude, then you're right. You're never going to be able to make it. But I can guarantee you can make things better. And there's two ways of making things better: either make more money or lower how much money your expenses are each month. Both decisions are not easy to do, but one of them has to happen because at the end of the day, you are the person that's going to dictate the quality of your life by being able to put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort to be able to do those things. I think we say it too often on this podcast, but no one is coming to save you. If you want to pay yourself first, if you want to be able to do these things, you have to make decisions because you made decisions to put yourself in, where your fixed income was so high. And maybe you didn't make them consciously, but they got you to where you are. So we have to be able to take responsibility for that and move it. And yes, there is a place to be said about the system is set up that doesn't matter how much money you're making, things just keep on going up and up and up. I understand that entirely, and complaining about it and, whining about it, it might be cathartic, but it's not going to help fix the situation. I love complaining, but it never fixes it.
Nope. We got to control the controllables. That's pretty much it.
For your guilt-free spending account, Dominic, do you just put that? Is that like a separate bank account entirely? And like, you're like, if there's money in here, I can do whatever I want with it, or how do you typically budget that?
No, so I'll pull it out in cash. So each week from my check, I'll pull out an allotted amount. And that's like my weekly fund money, or I guess 2 week fund money. Um, and sometimes I won't spend it. Right. Sometimes I'll save it. Right now, I really want to get this I really want to get this teleprompter, but it's so much money. So I'm like debating. I'm like, all right, I gotta save some of my fund money up for that. And every seems like every other week the fund money gets touched a little bit. It's like what I had let's say I had 100, $200 because I don't how am I gonna spend anything on? I've got needs. I don't have wants, but this is the only thing I want right now. So it's like I only take like $100 out because I don't find myself needing that much or wanting that much. So, but yeah, I'm just saving for it, and I put it in cash because to me it feels more real, and I feel more excited about it rather than, especially when you like you look at like the bank accounts, you're like, oh, I've got my emergency fund, big savings, big, and then you see fund money, tiny, very tiny, and it's like, oh well, why don't I just pull from my savings? Why don't I just pull from my emergency fund? And that's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't want to compare apples to apples because my wants and my needs are two separate things. So for me, it helps me to just have it in cash.
Cool.
But
I like that system.
yeah,
Let's go on to area number two of what we need to make sure we automate. And that's our
okay,
bills and our fixed expenses. Just like we talked about with the 50-30-20 rule or 50-25-25 rule, whatever you want to call it. We need to make sure that we have a lot of our money going towards those things that late fees and stress are a problem, and a problem that can be optimized because they can be made optional due to the advent of automation, due to the systems that we have in place. We have the ability to auto pay reoccurring balances. If that means your mortgage, your rent, your electricity bill, your water bill, all of that can be set up. One time primary bill accounts is usually the way that I do this. So all of the money that you know is going to be pulled out, send all that to one account that it's getting pulled from. What I don't want is if someone's like you, Dominic, and they have 6 different accounts that they're saying, all right, the electricity bill is going to go to this account. The water bill is going to go to this account, and then my gas bill is going to go to this account, because now you're having to watch all of these things. So anything that is going to be fixed expenses, like it doesn't matter, you cannot negotiate with these guys. That's where you want to go to all one account, because the fewer accounts that you have, the fewer decisions you have to make. Boring systems creates a very peaceful life. Any thoughts
That
on
makes
that?
sense. Oh, yeah, I love that. That makes sense. That would be insane to have, like, a gas account, a water bill account. I do in my defense, I do have one main bill paying account. The other ones are just like emergency fund, savings, like vacation fund, like this, something like that. But uh, having a credit card or a debit card just for the water bills, it's hilarious to me though. That's really funny.
Well, the thing that I fear, and the reason that we bring it up, is because some
Mhm.
people hear like, "Oh, I have to systematize things." In order to have a good system, it has to be complicated. Like all good systems are complicated. But what we learn from like physics is that there's something called entropy. So the
Mhm.
more complex the system, the faster it breaks down. The simpler the system, the easier it works. That's the reason that like jellyfish can live basically like indefinitely. Is because they're such a simple system compared to like more complex creatures.
Jellyfish live indefinitely?
They live for a very long time. No, not indefinitely. There are some jellyfish that can actually like re-become themselves. Like they're almost immortal. Like as all their cells like die, they reanimate themselves somehow.
Huh,
Um, because they're like so simple.
interesting. Must have been what Palpatine used to come back in those movies. Interesting.
Another thing to think about here in area two with bills and fixed expenses is this is where our credit cards come in as well. Because credit cards are those things where you're not going to be able to negotiate with a credit card company all too much. Those reoccurring automatic payments can be set up and should be set up. Ideally, if you're spending on a credit card, you can go into your bank account, go to that credit card, set up automatic bill pay, and have it pay off the statement balance. I think too many people at this point, what they do is they'll go in there and they'll set it up. They're like, Chris, I press the automated thing, but the button they select is the minimum. And if you're just making the minimum payments on your credit cards, the chances that you're going to pay those off is very, very small, because the minimum is not meant to get you out of debt. The minimum is meant to keep you in debt and just keep it off of your credit score. That's it. Dom, have you ever had to make anything like that for credit cards before?
No, I tried. I'm not advanced enough for the credit cards just yet. I feel like I'm not at that stage yet where I can truly utilize it. Similar to like how you would utilize it, because my expenses are pretty fixed. Um, so for me to get a new credit card and it's like, oh, you got to hit the spend bonus. It's like, I mean, I could, but it just doesn't fit my lifestyle right now. But I have been in a spot where it's like, okay, hey, you have to hit you have to make the minimum payment in order to get this paid off. But it's like, might take a few months. If you don't want to keep paying this bill, it's like, all right, well, I'll pay off like half here and then I'll pay off half next month. But those are for like massive purchases.
Yeah, I just want people to really realize that late fees and stress, they're optional problems in today's age. You have the ability to set up all of these systems at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the time, so that once those money comes in, it can pay everything else. Now, if you're spending more money than you're making, now it's no longer an optional problem. But again, that's something that you need to control somewhere else. And this optimization systems is not going to be helpful in that. That's a very different problem that you need to solve in a different way. That's either by earning more money or spending less money. Area number three that we want to make sure we automate is our savings and our long term goals. Savings works best when it happens quietly. Automatic goals based on or automatic goal based savings, separate bucketed accounts with clarity, and no consistent should I save debate. Too many people are saying, oh, when my check comes in, should I save this money? Should I not save this money? It needs to be automated. And just like I talked about earlier with my wife's accounts, we have different buckets where they go. So right now we have our emergency savings where whenever a check comes in, it goes to that. And we also have an Italy savings for our trips. And that money is going to go directly towards there, knowing that this is where that money is going. Because I think too many people say, Once the money comes in, I'm going to go ahead and spend, and whatever's left over, that's what gets saved for future purchases like buying a new car or a house or a down payment or whatever. But at the end of the day, none of that gets saved because most people's impulses when they see money in the account is to spend said money. Consistency beats intensity every time.
And I think that should be like the staple of today's episode is that consistency does beat intensity every time, right? It's so much better. I- It'd be like us. It's like, hey, save once versus like save 100 times. It's like, which one are you going to have more money at? It's always consistency. Always choose consistency. And also, when it comes to like developing a plan, I know we talked about a few different numbers, like 50, 25, 25, or, 60, whatever. Pick something that you can kind of stick with and you can kind of grow with. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be practical, usable, and something that you can actually stick with.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is if you can't stick with it, then it's not a system.
No.
Too many
Would you
people
say
think like,
that's
huh?
sorry, Chris, I was just gonna say, it's like, would you say that that's like one of the biggest problems you have when advising people is like you build a plan for them that works and it's good, but well, they just don't end up following it?
I think that's the biggest problem with traditional financial advice. Yes, is that people will say like, "Oh, well, if we control all of these inputs, we control all of the outputs. If you just do this, you'll be perfect." And yeah, it works great on paper. And that's the problem that I have with traditional financial planning is they give you this great book and they're like, "Hey, just follow this to the T." But then the moment you walk outside of that office, life happens. You fall, you trip, you hurt yourself, you lose your job, you get in a car crash, whatever. And now the plan that you had means nothing because you can't stick to it. We have to make sure that, and this is why we say 80 to 90% of being good with money is your mindset. Like the math part of it, the 10 to 20%, that's pretty darn easy. But how do we stick to it is the hard part. That's where life gets messy. That's where things are not controllable like they are in our economics textbooks. You have to be able to stick to the plan because the perfect plan means nothing if you can't do it or are unwilling to do it.
And that's the tough part. That's the human part.
Yeah.
How do we do it, Chris? How do we do it? Give us the answer. We want a one size fits all, one giant fix, but it doesn't really exist, does it?
No, I mean, that's where you have to start with your values, your why. Like, why am I doing this? Because I think we all think, like, oh, well, when the decision comes up to it, where it's I make this or this, and I have to choose the trade off, I'm going to make the decision for my long term self. But in reality, when it gets to that moment, it's your short term self, your immediate self that wants gratification. And they are willing to screw over long term you in order to have short term pleasure. So you need to be able to have that ability to make a decision in the moment that future you will be thankful for. And that's really hard because we've had brain studies where people think about their future selves, like, oh, think about you when you're 60. And we almost have the same feeling towards that person as we do towards some other third party, like anybody else, like some random person that like we kind of know of vaguely, or like a friend's friend. So when you're thinking about like, hey, I need to make the best decision for future me, it's almost like saying, I need to make a best decision for that one guy that I passed on the street the other day. Like, how can I work in the best interest of that guy that I saw in the store? That's the same way that we think about ourselves in 30 years. Same way we think about ourselves in 40 years. And then we all wonder, why is it so difficult to save? Why is it so difficult to take care of future me? It's because in your brain, that person is a complete stranger to you.
Is that something that we need to kind of familiarize ourselves with and like make that person human? Or is there any way to kind of introduce future you to current you? You know what I'm trying to get at, Chris? Is there a way to kind of convince the brain that that future you is important, not just some random Joe walking on the street?
Well, we've done studies on it on ways to automate 401k behavior and ways to automate savings and make them higher. And what we've noticed in those experiments is, well, I'll kind of tell you the parameters. What they did with this one is they got people to come in and they told them like, hey, future you, like this is your future, blah, blah, blah. how much money do you want to automate towards savings? And it's usually pretty low. But then when you grab somebody and then you take a photo of them and then you age that photo and you say, hey, this is you in 40 years. Like, this is what you're going to be doing. This is all these things. And they kind of put themselves in that frame of mind and they see a visual representation of who they are going to be in 30 years. That's when our savings ability in the control group went substantially higher. Like, they wanted to save more for that person. So we need to be able to mentally, because you can't really do it physically. Like, we can't physically go future in time, but we have this amazing prefrontal cortex in our brain. And that brain is what's given, or that part of our brain is what gives us, basically makes us the apex predator. It allows us to travel in the future and allows us to travel in the past in our brains. So we can travel into the future in our brains and think about that 40-year-old version, or 40 when you're 60s or whatever,
Right.
yourself in 40 years, and think about what decisions today can I do so that in the future I will be happy with myself. I will be thankful for what I did today. It's not going to make the situation go away. It's not going to immediately fix the problem, but at least now you're going to try to have these two competing ideas in your head of what do I want today immediately and what do I want in the future? Because there's always a sacrifice.
Yeah.
There are no solutions, there are only trade offs. What can I do to have fun today and have fun tomorrow? Where too many people, depending on their genetics, their upbringing, their whatever, default to one or the other, and they think it's a binary choice. Where in reality, there are very few binary choices. It's always, it's most oftentimes a shade of gray.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is that the trade-off, like you were talking about, right? And how, if you grew up as a spender, you can become a saver. And if you grew up as a saver, you can become a spender, right? And that neither are perfect, neither are better. They both need each other, right? Can't spend without having something saved. And there's no point saving if you're not going to spend it, right? In some cases, I guess in my young age, I'm trying to get my parents to spend their money. I'm like, please don't leave me money. Just enjoy your money. I don't want your money, please. Um, you'd be surprised how difficult that is. It's unbelievable. But I'd love to continue on with the automation conversation. I'm getting a lot out of this, and I hope that everyone else is getting a lot out of this as well.
Of course. Area number 4 that we want to automate, and this is a big one. We're only going to go really high level on this one because we can go super deep, and that's investing in long term growth. Investing should be repetitive, not emotional. It should be a system that's set up in the background that you're not dealing with. If you're having to go in every day, every week and choose your stocks, pick your things, look at the charts and see, like, I want this or that, the chances that you're going to stick with it in the long term are, unless you really, really love it and that's like your passion in life, are pretty damn small. But the amount of people who I've met that that is their passion in life is approaching like single digit numbers, like very low single digit numbers of people that like to actually do it. Because for most people, even the people that are good with it, it causes a lot of stress. So we want to be able to automate our contributions to our investment accounts, automate where the investments are going to go into. Fewer changes equals fewer regrets. And we need to make sure we have a long term focus. The best investment behavior is usually the least exciting ones. And that's the reason that 401ks and work sponsored employee plans is where majority of people's money is, because the money gets taken out before you even get the paycheck. All you have to do is decide how much money do I want to go into it. And another experiment we ran is when things are made simpler. We used to have an opt-in for 401ks. Like, you had to go in there, you had to click some button and say, hey, I want to put this much amount. And that was opt-in. Now we have an opt-out system for most employers where it's, you're already enrolled in the 401k at this percent. Do you want to change it? And you would be surprised about how many people, just because we are inherently lazy creatures, will not do something. So if something is automatically set up for us, we will just stick with that. So when we make our automations in our life, if we work hard one time to set up the systems, the chances that you're going to go in there and change the systems or stop them are very low because we are inherently lazy. We don't want to go and change things.
But I think that's a good lesson also in how friction stops us from doing something. And we can actually learn from that in a way where, going back to like what James Clear was talking about, like if something is, and it requires multiple steps and it's like, I don't know how to do this. Do I have to go in and talk to someone and make something more difficult? Well, chances are you're probably not going to do it. So I guess it's a great thing that it's automatically opt in rather than opt out, which
Mhm.
is nice. Because if it was opt out, or if it was, normally you're not included, well, it's like going to the dentist. Nobody wants to go to the dentist, but you kind of have to go to the dentist. So I guess that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And then I think another thing we have to talk about when we are deciding our investing and our long-term growth, it's what accounts do they go into? Do we put them into our IRAs or to our non-qualified accounts? What does even all of that mean? And today we're not going to get into each one of those little nuances and try to decide that, but that's another thing that you need to decide when you're talking about investing. Not only is what am I going to invest it in, but in what portfolio, what type of investment vehicle will I invest that in? Is it going to be in my Roth? Is it going to be in my traditional? Is it going to be in a non-qualified account? We make that decision. We have another decision to make. How do I want to invest it? Do I want to go into crypto, real estate, into individual stocks or ETFs or mutual funds? Each one of these things need to be automated and systematized at the beginning with pretty clear information as to why you're making that decision. And Dom, I don't know if today you want to go into each one of those because I think that would take forever. And we
I
have
would. It would take forever.
160 some odd other episodes of talking about that where people can go back and listen to those. I would definitely recommend going back to episode 110 and start the FI crash course to hear all of that. We talk about basically everything on how to get through where you need to go, but there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And the nice thing about it is you only have to make the decisions once.
And that's really the key, right? Making the decision once, something that you can really reap the benefits down the line. It's not something you continuously have to harvest and plant and water. It's just one time. And I love that. I love it because it's simple and it's easy. And I love simple. I love easy.
Perfect. So now that we've talked about the four areas that we want to automate, which again is our income allocation, our bills and fixed expenses, our savings and long-term goals, and then our investing and our long-term growth. And we only talk about investing and long-term growth at a very high level because we're not trying to give you investment advice. This is all for informational and educational purposes only. Thank you for checking out part 1 of this episode, Money Automation and Systems. Check out part 2 coming out this Friday. We'll see you there. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.